Hello and welcome to Stories That Shape Us. My name is Joanna Daniel. One of the things I want to be on Stories That Shape Us is to talk about honest stories that shape us and help with managing emotions and some of the things that we experience and how we can manage them. If you go back to the very first episode of Stories That Shape Us, I shared a story of our moving story and all the emotions and what was going on. So I want to keep that level of honesty with you and just to share sometimes my journey and what's going on and how it's managed. So yesterday, as you noticed, I didn't post a story. And I post one story every day for the last 240 odd days. Yesterday, I didn't post a story because the day didn't go so well. So sometimes I pre-record the stories, sometimes I don't get to. So yesterday I should have recorded for yesterday and today. And because of what was going on, I just didn't get a chance to post that story. A lot is going on at the moment. Some of it I can't share just yet. But will as we're processing and as we're going along. So I didn't post yesterday because honestly, I wasn't great. I had some news and I tried all day to manage and hope and that things wouldn't work out the way it eventually did. And so I was so confused and disappointed and really triggered. Really, really triggered. My nervous system went into full overdrive as a result, and I was in this state of confusion. I wasn't sure if my brain and body was in my freeze response or in my fight response or I wasn't sure what was going on. Was I in full frozen collapsed, or was I in fight or flight? It was just this confusion. But as you know, I've shared here before how I practice to listen to my body and to respond to what's going on in my body. And so that's what I did. My brain shut down. My body was in full freeze, fight or flight, that confusing place. My window of tolerance went like this. And I wasn't doing great. So I went to bed. I went to bed. I went and I did a video today, a short here on YouTube and also on my Instagram and Facebook page, and Once the Scars Instagram and Facebook page, about rest and how healing rest is when we are overwhelmed and when our nervous system is overwhelmed, and how healing it is. And I know that. And I also share that silence is one of the things that I use to deal with overwhelm. And so I went to bed and I had to just allow my body to absorb and to release what was going on, how my nervous system was. I had to give my body that space to deal with the shock because it was just such a big shock that triggered me, and I had to give my body space and time to deal with that. And it takes time, as you know, when you're dealing with triggers, to return to get your body back to a place of peace. It's not something that you can rush. It's something that when it's that type of trigger, it's something that it takes time. It's a gentle, timely process. And so I went to bed and stayed in the dark room for hours. And my husband brought me tea, asked, "Do you want the light on?" No, don't want the light on. Um, they left me alone. And today I didn't go to church. I stayed home alone and I sat in the sun. I sat in one position for hours, just allowing the sun to just do its thing and soften my body and help me to feel better in my body. So the sun did that for me. A good night's rest helped as well. Just lying in the dark on my back, just allowing my body to relax and allow my body and my mind to come into alignment. Sitting in the sun this morning in the quietness of the house, and just sitting there, not talking to anyone on the phone, not really watching anything, just sitting in silence and allowing my body to calm, my nervous system to fully calm down and for everything to come back in alignment. because when we're in that place of trigger, our brain isn't working as it should. So one of the things, and I talk about that here. I didn't want to go to church and pretend that all is well. When everybody says, "Oh, happy Sabbath, how are you?" I'm fine. I I want to be true to where I am in my journey, and so I stayed home so that I could get some time to authentically do that process. And sometimes I feel sad that there's no space in church for that to happen. But I also appreciate that everybody's not in that space yet. Everybody has not had the chance to give attention to their own wounds, so they're not able to be attentive to anybody else's wound. And so that's why sometimes we experience hurt, because we go when we're not okay. And I'm not advocating staying home. That's my process. Your process might be different, but I didn't want to not be authentic. I didn't want to put off processing until tomorrow or when I get back home. Put off processing, put it on the shelf, go and pretend, and come back and pick it back up. I wanted the process to happen in a timely way without the interruptions, and so I chose to stay away so that I could do that process. But as I said, sometimes because people don't give attention to their own wound, they can't give attention to yours, and so you won't be seeing. And I've learned enough now to not blame. It's not a blame, it's just an awareness of exactly what's happening and where I could do it, and what I need to do for myself to be able to be okay. So if you've been in that place and you've taken it and you've gone to church and you've not felt seen and you've not felt ministered to, it could be, people come in a different headspace, they come in a different zone altogether. And so there's no time and space to fully hear you and for you to be able to have someone that will carve out a space to listen. Sometimes there's no room, there's nowhere, no physical room for you to go talk to. It might be raining and you can't go for a walk, and so there's no way to connect in a way that you perhaps want to connect in order for you to deal with the thing that you are, to get help to deal with the thing that you're dealing with. So if you know that, then look after yourself accordingly. So I know that, and so I stayed home, because also I process in silence, and so it wouldn't work for me to be in a full room with people. I process in silence. There are people who don't process in silence. You might need to go, because you might need to put it off for a bit to stop the processing, to go do what to go do regular stuff at church, and to come back and to continue. So what's important here is that you know yourself. The important thing that I want you to take away is that feel what you're feeling, not ignore it, because when we ignore it, what it does is come back in another way, and sometimes more intense. So feel what you're feeling and give yourself the opportunity to understand your triggers, to understand how it plays out in your body and what's going on, and understand what you need in order to keep the space wide between your trigger and your automatic response. As I've said this here before, that it takes milliseconds to move from trigger to automatic response. And sometimes the thing that happens is so powerful, it's so shocking that it sends us in that place before we can get to utilizing our coping strategies. And so I didn't get to utilize my coping strategies before I went in full fight, flight, and freeze, altogether confusion in my body. But as I got there, I knew. So the work of now undoing and to relaxing the nervous system and to use the tools, the resilience tools that I have to get myself back, I gave myself time to do that, right? So what's important, wherever you do it and however you do it, is that you give yourself time to use those tools to get yourself back to a place of peace and not ignore it. Because when we ignore it, when we're triggered, our bodies are compromised, our immune system is compromised, our digestion don't work so well. So a lot of things won't work as well as it would. We're more vulnerable to certain things. So that's why it's so important to be able to feel what you're feeling, use the resilience tools, and to get yourself back. So I sat in the sun today. I was going to go for a walk because I love nature. That's one of the places that processing happens for me and relaxing happens for me. But I just felt impressed that I shouldn't go for a walk today. So I stayed home. I got my Bible and my notebook and some videos that were really connecting with where I am. And I had this amazing 5 hours this afternoon of learning and just understanding the confusion and wading through it. And sometimes when God takes us through some things, we don't always understand it. And I'm not pretending that I understand, or even I'm not even okay with what happened. But I know that He has a purpose and a plan. And ultimately, I work myself back to a place of trust. I'm going to trust you with this. I still don't understand it. I still don't understand it. I still don't know why you didn't do what I want, but I'm going to trust you. And so even though we come back to that place, I came back to that place in an authentic way, not pretending. Because I mean, I say, why pretend with God? Because He knows anyway. So sometimes I don't want to go through difficulties. And while nobody does. I don't want you to go through the difficulties. None of us want to go through difficulties where we're having to do this work of restoration. But restoration, when we make ourselves do the work, is a beautiful, beautiful place that we get to, of a deeper settledness and understanding of self, and how God leads in our circumstances. So I while I was here this afternoon with my notebook and my pen, there was so much that I was learning that I have a whole week of audio devotionals that I'm going to publish on the website, and also here on YouTube and the different places where Wounds to Scars is, at Facebook and on Instagram. And doing work like this, wanting to not only the emotional healing side but the spiritual side, because I know some of you are here because of that. And I know sometimes because we don't always hear our pain reflected through the word. And one of the things I wanted to do many, many years ago, one of the prayers that I pray, was to know God and make Him known. And I have learned over the course of many years that I want to make Him known in an authentic way, not just because I know intellectually, but because I know through experience. Through experience, I know and I experience Him. And it's that journey, that experience that I share often. And I realize that when I don't spend time like I did this afternoon, then I don't have much to share really that is authentic. And then I don't. So I want to do it from that place of authenticity, of connection, in an honest way. I want to leave you with, life is not neat. We're going to experience things. We're going to be triggered. We're going to be triggered, and it's going to be shocking sometimes. It's going to come unexpectedly. And it's going to come from people and places that we don't expect. One of the things that kept coming to my mind last night was that God is not surprised by this, Joanna. He's not surprised. He knows it was going to happen. You're the only one that's surprised because you didn't know. That was in it was coming, it was not comforting to me at the time, because I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to know so I could know not to hope. And I don't know why, and I may never know why. One of the books of the Bible that I love is Job. I love Job, and I especially love the last couple of chapters in Job, when Job's friends came, and I loved how they ministered to him with silence, and then when they start to speak, they shouldn't have. And then Job spoke, and Job really poured out his heart, but Job kept coming back to, but I know that my Redeemer lives. He keeps coming back to it. And I'm not in no way comparing myself and the challenge that I've just experienced, and I'm still experiencing, to Job. But I love that book. And here's why I'm sharing it with you. Because in the end of Job, I think from about chapter 40, God started to speak. And he never answered any of Job's questions. He never spoke about he never answered the friend's question. None of those things he answered. He just let them talk, and he let them talk. And at the end, he said, when he was speaking, and he spoke powerfully about who he is, he basically didn't defend himself to Job either. He didn't say, well, Job, he said, do you know when the birds are hungry, who they come to for food? Who told the sea how far to go? Do you know who basically, I am the creator, Job, right? And so at the end, after Job listened, Job says, I heard about you by the airing of the air, but now my eyes have seen you. And that blows me away all the time. all the time. And so last night when I kept hearing, God is not surprised by this, Joanna, you're the only one that's surprised. And even though in my humanness, I just wasn't appreciating it at the time, because I'm like, you should have told me. Why did you let me hope? For me, just remembering that story and remembering who he is, tells me that I hold on to that. I hold on to that. So I do my physical process of allowing my body to come back to a place of peace. I practice my resilience tools. I work my way back from being triggered to come back to a settled place where I have full access of my frontal lobe. I couldn't have this conversation with you yesterday even because I wasn't able to. When we're in that place of trigger, we're in the emotional brain and we're not able to reason and think as clearly as we would want to. And so that's why it's important to know when we're triggered and know what to do to get back. And as you see through this experience that I'm sharing with you, it's not always a quick process. But as long as you're true to it and allow yourself to do it, you will get back to a place of peace in your mind and in your body. And it's from that place that you get to make decisions, that you get to think clearer, and that you get to move forward with plans, or you can make new decisions, and you can move yourself forward. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for bearing with me for me not posting an episode yesterday. And I wanted to explain and to just let you know, I know I didn't need to, but I want to be true to the process of stories that shape us, because some of the stories that shape us, it's not always neat. Things happen, and it's being able to deal with it when it comes and when it happens, and being able to be authentic to the process and to share with you some of the stories that shape me. So thank you for joining me in this episode of Stories That Shape Us. I hope you'll join me on the next story.